You're Hi. So, as the title suggests, I want to talk to you guys about being nice to your healers, because I, very much like other healers, sometimes feel like y'all got us fucked up. So, let's talk. I think the first thing that's super duper important to note is that we have boundaries. Sometimes we don't know what those are, but you also need to use your judgment and ask, would I appreciate if somebody asked me this? So, for example, when we are dancing, when we are out, shaking our ass, having fun, catching a wine, do not choose that to be the time where you ask us for advice on something near and dear, something really personal, something big. We didn't choose that, you know? Everybody has their specific times where they're allowing people to come in for us to hold space for them, which is why we have websites where you can book us, which is why we have hour times where, you know, you can sit down with us and chill. But when we're trying to be human, just respect that, you know. It can be really complicated when we're trying to maintain friendships and bonds with people, but people have us kind of set in their heads as an advice bank or their personal healer. We're people, you know. I think what comes along with that is a really big sense of tokenism, where if we don't do certain things, where we're, you know, not always high and mighty or holy or whatever the fuck idea people have of shit like this, that we're not healers. Where if we say things like hex your ex, or if somebody's fucking with you, like that revocation, then we're doing black magic or some shit like that. It's just like, everybody's different, one. Two, if you don't have that kind of energy, then mind your fucking business. And three, keep your audacious bullshit to yourself, in a way, you know? I think a lot of that comes from Christianity. Not to say that all Christians are like that, because it's not true. But a lot of that comes from the idea that folks in the diaspora who are practicing their native cultures or religions are fucking up or messing with the devil or whatever the fuck. That's not true, and people are going to express themselves the ways that they need to, and if that involves rebuking, that's what it is. And I also noticed that along with that, it's all evil and harmful until you need help, or until somebody's messing with you personally. Then it's okay, right? So that's another thing. Healers sometimes heal through harming other people, and that's usually because people have harmed them first, and that's how that works. I think another big part of that is not being the friend who always has a joke about a person's practice. So I used to hang out with someone that would pretty much make a joke every time I mentioned something not feeling good to me, or feeling anxious in certain spaces, because there would be other people who were anxious, or people who were dealing with a lot of shit, and I would go in that space and I would pick up a lot. And she would just be like, oh, Natalie's being sensitive or whatever. And it's like, bitch, I'm dealing with a lot. Everybody in here dealing with a lot, and I'm the deposit for that shit. So be nice, offer me some lavender oil, and keep it cute, you know what I mean? Don't be that person who always has something to say that is not helpful but creates more anxiety for that person. I feel like people don't always acknowledge the aspects of empathy in healers where we need support, or the fact that sometimes we're so deeply congealed in trying to heal ourselves that other people might not see that we need help. So when we do open up and say, like, I'm freaking out right now, I'm having anxiety, don't be an asshole, you know? But also when it just comes to other things, when it comes to things like when we talk about stuff that's spiritual that makes us happy, we talk about crystals, when we talk about, you know, a spell working correctly, or something big happening, manifestation, you know what I mean? Or just getting rid of big issues, don't smirk. Don't be an asshole. And I feel like for people who are budding as healers, this is super important too, just because it can be hard to decide who comes with you on your journey and who does not. And it's a very difficult transition, just because we are all moving so rapidly in different ways. But I would say, if you have a conversation with a person and you're saying, hey, I don't like this, or this does not work for me, or you're making me uncomfortable, and they continue to do it, that's already that. You feel me? I have a whole other video on that. But anyway, I think it's also super duper important that we acknowledge, just because someone is bright and shiny does not mean that they need to be your friend. So for folks who are just learning about healers, or just kind of coming into this whole world, just because someone has good energy does not mean that you have to attach to them. And I think it's mostly important to recognize that obviously if you're with a bunch of people like this, you have that within you as well. So I feel like what happens a lot is that people will be like, oh my god, you have such good energy, or blah blah blah. I think there's like a meme about it where it's like, you know, you're so different, you have such good energy, is that weird or whatever? And the spacebar button is like, I knew that already. And it can be like that. I was talking about this with my friend the other day, and it can be very uncomfortable to be bombarded with that kind of energy constantly, where people are putting you on a pedestal for doing the work, you know what I mean? So I think it's super important that people learn how to do the work themselves and not kind of create a whole idea of what a person is just because they're doing the work themselves. You do the work. Get you some resources. Also coming into the other point where people will, oh my god, this is like one of the most like frustrating things for me personally, where people will kind of just come up to you asking you a bunch of questions, asking you questions about their personal lives, asking you like, you know, when somebody finds out you're a reader or a Reiki healer or whatever, and they're like, oh my god, read my palm, or can you read me right now, right here? Like, does that see, like, I don't think I've ever understood like what makes people think that that's okay, but it's not. Unless somebody's offering that service to you or you are paying for it, that's not okay. It's really rude. And also, kind of acknowledging that these are all things you can develop within yourself. So if you're the kind of person that does not want to pay for a reading, okay, cool. Get a book on how to read tarot. Learn how to do Reiki. Learn how to do whatever it is that you're trying to ask this person to do for you for free. And also don't be the kind of person who's trying to create a friendship with someone based on you wanting that from them. It's predatorial and it's gross. Not fun. Another thing that I think is super duper important is understanding we have mood swings. Not even mood swings. Okay, so let's recap that. Let's move back. Not mood swings, but mood shifts. So the more sensitive people become, the more aligned with the cosmos they become, the more aligned with their guides they become, the more aligned with their own internal shifts they become. So there will be times where I know personally I don't want to go out. I do not want to talk to anyone. If I do a bunch of readings in a week, I need to be alone. I do not want to see anyone. I need to take my baths. I need to stay home. I need to talk to my own guides. I need to figure out what the fuck is going on with my own life. It's not about you. It's not about anybody else. And being friends with me means having to understand that. My best friend, who I've been friends with for like 12 years now, completely understands that. She respects my space. She asks me if I'm okay, if I need anything, if I need support, if there's anything I want to talk about. And if I say, no, I'm good, cool, we're good, you know? And I have been guilty of being the friend where it's like, I need your attention. But after a while, you have to learn everybody is learning their own lesson, and it takes time for everybody to do what they need to do. So a lot of the time that looks like asking people, what are your boundaries? What are your needs? Around what time of the fucking year do you get grumpy and sad? How can I support you? What moon cycles fuck you up? You know what I mean? This is where stuff like sharing and comparing charts comes in really importantly. Finding your birth chart and knowing what that looks like for you and your friend, even using the CoStar app, explains a lot. And it makes things a lot simpler in terms of navigating these friendships, because it's already difficult enough doing it internally by yourself. But once you have friends that are also healers, it can be a lot. So kind of learning to go along as it's happening, learning to respect the boundaries that people set as they're setting them within themselves is super big. Personally, for me, I like to have conversations with my friends where we sit down and we're just real as shit. We're real about shit. Me having a Mercury Sagittarius, I tend to have to take time to write out what's going on in my head, because people are always talking about how we can hurt feelings. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I want to get my shit across clear without there being shame or discomfort on any end. So having these conversations is super important. But yeah, overall, I think what's super duper important to acknowledge is that we are fucking people. Healers take in the traumas, the shames, the karmic cycles of so many different people. from so many different lifetimes. Personally, I do karmic work within myself and with my clients. It's very easy for me to see what other people have been doing and why it's lining up the way that it's lining up for them now. So in many shamanic practices, people like that are called sin eaters. In Ireland, sin eaters are usually left the fuck alone. Nobody talks to them, people leave them alone, people isolate them. Whereas in other cultures, shamans are deeply revered. Everybody always makes sure they're okay. People always make sure that the shaman has their house in order, that they're fed well, that they're good. We live in America, or at least I live in America. But I know here in the West, it's not like that at all. Most shamans are, well, let's not say most, but a lot of people who would be shamans are considered schizophrenic. A lot of people who would be considered shamans are depressed, are dealing with a lot. And that's because in a lot of ways, this society does not know how to support healers because they're being medicated, because they're being neglected, because they're being ignored, and because sometimes we don't even know how to take care of ourselves. So really having conversations with people that are breaking out of those stigmas, that are learning to take care of themselves, creates a better world and makes you recognize maybe you're a healer too. Whether you're healing everybody else through ways that are more visual or more noticeable, you're still doing the work within yourself by being kind, by acknowledging your own nonsense, and being patient enough with yourself and others to build from that. So yeah, thank you for watching. Be nice, and hug a fucking healer. Offer them something nice. Venmo them some cash. I'll put my Venmo down here, you know. But just be grateful for us because we're people too, and sometimes we get sad and we cry and we need support. So do that, be that, and you have a good night. Or day, because